We can now bring in Paul Melly, Consulting Fellow of the Africa Program at Chatham House. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24
Good.
today. What is the official reason we're getting for this delay?
Well, the official reason is that there are questions that have been raised by some parliamentarians about the standing, if you like, the actions of some judges in the Constitutional Court, which is the authority that oversees the whole process of the constitution and elections ultimately in Senegal. And, for example, decides about basically the basic rules, if you like, of the political system. But many people wonder whether actually there are more political reasons behind President Macky Sall's decision to delay the election. There have been reports of a dispute between him and the Prime Minister, the government candidate, and there's a growing feeling that perhaps the government candidate, the Prime Minister Amadou Ba, uh, might not be able to win the election, and that possibly the real reason for the delay is that the government fears that it will lose if Amadou Ba remains the official candidate.
Senegal has often been called the most stable democracies, one of the most stable democracies in West Africa, given what we have seen in the region over the past few years. Is it really?
Yes, in many respects it is. This is the first time an election in Senegal has been delayed like this. This is completely unprecedented. The country has never had a military coup. It has strong institutions. There's a strong tradition of public debate. And although Senegal completed the transition to full multi party politics in the 1990s in the same way as other West African countries, in fact, it had begun that journey much earlier. So there is this long tradition of openness and debate. But we've also seen in the last several years a lot of protests, huge tension around particularly President Macky Sall's attitude towards his principal challenger, Ousmane Sonko, who's a very charismatic anti-corruption campaigner. Now, Sonko has already been excluded from this election because of a conviction for accusing a minister of corruption. And so he was convicted of criminal libel. But many people suspect that that's, if you like, a politically motivated court case. There's a lot of distrust now of the judicial system. So, although Senegal has this long history of being stable, many Senegalese feel that the system has become uh, this stability and the credibility and independence of the institutions are under threat in a way that was never the case before.
We've seen mobile data services suspended this Monday. How far do you think the president's willing to go to keep protesters off the street?
Well, it seems unlikely that he can completely keep them off the
One,
streets. But the suspension of mobile data services is the sort of thing that goes on in authoritarian countries. Many Senegalese would be shocked that Senegal would even attempt to do that. The Senegalese government would even attempt to do that sort of thing. Um, the army in Senegal, for example, has always stayed completely out of domestic politics, and so there's a strong feeling, I think, among many Senegalese that their institutions are being tested in a way that was never the case before. For example, over the last year, some opposition supporters have been arrested, taken into detention because of what they posted on social media.
Paul,
That is,
I just want to jump in briefly because what can regional authorities do to pressure Senegal to go ahead and schedule this vote? Because we've obviously seen ECOWAS, for instance, what happened in Niger. They threatened a military intervention over that coup. That didn't happen. Do players like ECOWAS have teeth anymore?
uh, ECOWAS does still have teeth, but the challenge that it faces is that Senegal is seen as one of the pillars of ECOWAS. Senegal is seen as one of the countries that has been a pillar of stability, if you like, a pillar of sticking to the constitutional rules. And so That makes it particularly difficult. And it's very, the Senegalese army is very capable. ECOWAS couldn't mount a military intervention in Senegal. This is something that's going to have to be sorted out through politics. But there's a deep feeling that the way that Macky Sall is acting is really testing the absolute limits of Senegal's democratic credibility. And how ECOWAS responds over the next several days, it's going to be a huge challenge for the bloc, because he has until now been seen as one of the presidents who was part, if you like, of the ECOWAS establishment.
Paul Melly, we're going to have to leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.